Hi, I'm Hayley Victoria and welcome back to my crime and policing channel. As you can see, it's getting pretty festive in the UK, woohoo! I don't know if you can see outside my window as well, but it's snowing. It's quite cosy, I've got a fire on, got my little festive ornaments out, look. Oh. So yeah, welcome to winter in the UK. It's always cold. And we have like a few days where we're proper buzzing because it's snowing, then we all just get a bit fed up of it. Anyway, we're still in the buzzing stages. What we are going to look at today, apart from the weather, clearly, is crimes that are committed around this time of year, and just to help us consolidate our knowledge. So we're going to look at some of the key things that we'll look at, you know, witness, forensic evidence and things like that. Link it to real life cases to help us absorb all that knowledge. As I've mentioned before, we look at real cases. There's real victims and their families involved. So there's no glamorization of any killers ever going to happen in my videos. So if you're looking for that kind of serial killer fandom, you're not going to find it here. Because I think that anyone's a killer is a bit of a loser, well, a massive loser, and they've committed some really despicable crimes. What we're going to look at, however, is the evidence behind stuff and really go into those details. And we're going to look at some festive crimes to get us into the spirit and to help learn. Yay! And the first thing we're going to look at today is a really sad case of Ed and Minnie Maurin. So Ed was 81, Minnie was 83, a much loved couple, parents and members of the community. A really nice couple, lovely American family, you know, really nice family. Never had any trouble with anybody, just, you know, well-rounded, well nice people. And unfortunately, their bodies were found on Christmas Eve in 1985 at the end of a dead-end road in Chehalis where they lived. So how had these well-respected, well-loved people ended up being found dead? And the wounds that they'd sustained were shotgun wounds to the backs of their bodies. So our ballistic experts and blood pattern analysis have been there and had a look at it, and they can see that, you know, sustained gunshot wounds with this like a sawn-off shotgun, and, you know, incompatible with life. That they died at this, well, not at the scene they were found at, but they died because of those wounds. So I've just mentioned there, they didn't die at the scene they were found at. So what actually happened then? They were found Christmas Eve, but how did this much-loved couple get there? Well, a few days before that, on the 19th of December, family members did report them missing because they hadn't turned up to a party, which is very unlike these people. You know, they love wholesome family people. They're always at parties, you know, when there's a celebration going on with the family, they're there, but they weren't there, which sparked alarm with the family. They reported them missing, and the car was missing also. The very day after they were reported missing, they found the car. Now, in that car, there was a lot of blood, like, you know, a lot of blood, and the keys were still in the ignition, which that led to the investigation because police officers were really worried then. So remember, we were a few days before actually finding the couple, so they're like, there's a lot of blood in here, the ignition's not there, what's going on? Now then, when the investigation started, witnesses said they had seen the Maurin's car near the Sterling Savings and Loan Bank in the city centre, wherever they lived, town centre, and that Ed had withdrawn $8.5 thousand in cash, which is an unusual amount of money for him to be drawing out. You know, like, who takes out $8.5 grand? Nobody, right? So that was a sparked concern there. And there were some prime suspects already, which were the Riff Brothers. Now then, this is where it gets a bit weird, because the Riff Brothers were like notorious bad eggs in that area, and nobody was speaking out, and they had nowhere to go with it. And then for 27 years, the family had to wait for justice to prevail. So imagine the agony of not having that closure. I mean, I've lost a family member very close to me, and we had that closure in a couple of months. But 27 years is ridiculous. It's a lot of pain. So what happened then? So we know that the car was found with a lot of blood in it in the ignition, and the car keys in the ignition. And we know that from the forensic evidence, looking in the car and at the scene where the bodies were discovered, that there's been sawn off shotgun wounds to the victims' backs of their bodies. We know that they've been dragged to this wooded area at the end of this dead-end road. And we know the car has been involved. We know all these things. We know there's it's happened at the bank, which can help us build a picture of what happened. And we've seen the car being driven around the town centre. Now, a deputy also, apparently, this is only from one news article, pointed out that they'd seen who they thought were the Riff Brothers driving the car, but they had no other evidence to back it up. What happened there then? Well, what happened was 27 years later, a witness spoke out, and they said that they had, the Riff Brothers had been involved, and they had kidnapped, robbed, and murdered the Maurins for their money. And because of this witness evidence that came through, apparently they were like a friend of the Maurins as well. The police tried to track down the Riff Brothers. One of them had actually just passed away. John Riff had just passed away before they could be apprehended for the crimes. They'd moved to Alaska 2 years later, by the way. But Rick, his younger brother, was extradited back to Lewis County and charged with the murders of both Ed and Minnie. 2 counts of, that's first degree murder of both of those, 2 counts of first degree robbery and a count of first degree burglary. So as I mentioned, his brother had already passed away before that. What also happened was, so the story then obviously developed, or the cold case was finally solved. And what had happened is that Ed and Minnie had been kidnapped from their home. They'd been driven to the bank by the Riff Brothers. Ed had been forced to take out a lot of money, obviously $8,500. They'd then been killed in the car with a sawn-off shotgun and dragged to the location. The brothers had then taken all the money, gone on some mad cocaine, fueled spree, and then moved to Alaska, where they remained until obviously John died and Rick was caught. Thankfully, witnesses play a huge part in the criminal justice system. Evidence, we need as much evidence as possible to solve these cases, and justice did prevail eventually. So never give up, never give hope, was the son of the Maurins said. Never give hope, because these cases will be solved eventually. And that's the thing as well, like, if you see a crime or something's happened, you have to tell somebody, because the victims that are associated to these crimes and their families deserve that justice. So yeah, there you go. We looked there at the blood spatter analysis. We looked at the ballistics in terms of the gunshot wounds. We looked at witness evidence as well, and that transaction stuff at the bank. All of this is really important. The crime scenes we looked at there then would be the vehicle, the wooded path where the bodies were dragged, obviously. So when you look at crime scene, remember, we look at anywhere where you're going to be able to yield some evidence. So have a look at that. Put any comments in the comments below about if you want to have a bit of a research on that one, and let me know. But yeah, thank you. That's one case we're going to look at, and I will obviously add some more of the next few weeks. Thank you very much for watching. Don't commit any crimes and stay safe. Oh, and that's my cat. If you could subscribe to my channel, I'd really appreciate it, because it'll help my channel. Thank you. Bye.